everyone. Welcome to the Special Parent Podcast. I'm Dr. Deanna Iverson, and I'm so glad you're here to join us today. I have a special guest with me here. Annie, would you please introduce yourself?
I would love to. Okay, yeah, I'm Annie, and I'm a life coach and a mom of two, and I love what I do because I've struggled myself with feeling lonely. I mean, who hasn't, honestly, right? But it's been a struggle between being a single mom and being a special needs mom is a double dose of feeling isolated at times. And I've learned that there really are ways to figure that out and to not be wallowing in this loneliness. And yeah, so my kiddos are 10 and 11.
Oh boy.
18 months apart.
What a fun age.
They are, you know what? It is like the best age right now. I'm loving parenting at the moment. Not all of it. None of us do. But like for the most part, like we're at a really fun age. Like everyone can play Uno. Everyone wipes their own butt. You know, like everyone can like sort of like figure out lunch, you know?
Right.
Like I can sleep in on Saturday because like they'll just eat chips and watch YouTube and it's
okay.
fine.
And that's what Saturday mornings are for.
And it's okay.
I mean, how many times did we get up and just shove cereal in our mouth as we were watching some sort of cartoon?
Yeah, we all did it.
Yeah, we
and
survived
we're all
it just
surviving.
fine.
It's fine. Yes, totally.
In fact,
like they're a little
thriving.
self-sufficient, sort of, you know? So it's a sweet spot. But they still think I'm funny.
Oh,
you know?
hey,
Like we're in a
that's
good
nice.
place. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
I
one.
know.
We have an 11-year-old, so we have 3. And my youngest is 11, 14, 17. I spread mine out a little bit more because I was so stressed.
Yeah,
For
makes
me,
sense.
It was all about the plan and the stress. And it didn't reduce the stress by any means.
Sure,
having them
it's
further
different
apart.
stress.
It's just different.
Yeah,
right?
totally. I like that.
So, but I love how you mentioned it. There's a level of self-sufficiency that does take some of the stress off being a parent.
Right.
And as special needs parents, we know that there are some parents that never get quite that level of self-sufficiency.
Totally.
Which can even lead to more feelings of isolated,
Totally.
alone.
Yep.
No one understands. I can't go anywhere because of what's going on in my life because I have someone who's still very infant-like in some ways.
100%.
And so that's a level of stress. So that's why we wanted to talk, right?
Yes, I
we
love
wanted to talk all about how we can kind of overcome that. So first of all, you did say you have 2.
I have 2.
And one of them does have autism, you said. Is
Yes,
that
my
correct?
oldest. So my sweet little 11-year-old, he'll be 12 in January, but for now he's 11, and we say, 11 Evan. And so he is, I guess we're like 8-ish years into our, doing treatment for all the things. He got diagnosed when he was 2 officially. And then, in Arizona, they have you do like the at-risk at first, and then they do like the permanent diagnosis at like age 6 or so. And so, but around age 3 was when we got like real services and started doing all the therapies and all the things and all of that. So he is my greatest joy and my greatest teacher.
Isn't
we'll
that
put it
true?
that way, right?
I love that because we do learn so much from our children.
Yes.
They're teaching us, well, let's start off with patience.
Oh, so much patience. Yeah.
The patience there is, but they're also teaching us about a level of love that I don't think we would have ever understood.
Oh, yeah.
And a level of forgiveness for sometimes the other people in the world who aren't responding in a way that is conducive to raising a special needs child. So I know that, and again, we're talking about isolation and being alone, and that can definitely key right in on that.
Yeah, totally, for sure.
So, all right, to Evan 11, I love it. Going to be 12, you're going to have to come with a new run.
I know, I got to come with a new thing, but for now, it's working.
So you said kind of right in the early stages, you knew that your child was a little unique.
Yes, well, his dad at first was definitely the one that was like, I think he has autism at age 1. And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, we're first-time parents. What do we know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm breastfeeding, so I'm getting eye contact from him. So it's like a different, what's the word? Like it's a, say that over.
Like a connection that was different?
It's just like a different, like a different connection, a different, experience than dad was having.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Not that dad's experience was wrong. It was just different than mine.
Right.
And so at first I was like, oh, maybe, I don't know. And kind of dropped it. And then 18 months, dad came back again. Like, I really think he has it. He has a cousin with autism. I was like, I'm pretty sure he does.
Some experience.
And I was like, okay, because he'd been doing some research online, was just, worried about it. So he took like the MChat online and it said he was high risk. Like, okay. So went to the pediatrician and at first she dismissed me. Well, lots of kids don't talk till they're 2. I was like, I gave you like 7 other things.
Right.
Besides
And you
not
listened
talking.
to one of them. Okay.
Yeah. And you didn't hear any of those things, which was kind of my first step in becoming my kid's voice.
Yes.
Which I'm sure anybody listening, you are your own kid's voice, right? Like that's what we have to do as special needs parents. We have to be the advocate, right?
We do.
And I remember being like, excuse me, and that fired me up. And I've been shouting loud and proud for him ever since then. But it took 6 months for them to finally say, oh yeah, you should go to a developmental ped, and then they did the at-risk diagnosis and did early intervention, which was, I think a joke in Arizona. I think it's not helpful. It did not help us. It just made me feel more alone than ever.
Okay.
Age 2 to 3 was probably when I felt more alone than ever in my life. And not until we got some real therapists, because they're like, okay, here's this therapist for you. They're going to tell you what to do. I'm like, do you think I have a master's degree in occupational therapy?
Right.
I do not.
Right. And telling you what to do if then they send you home, no one's in a sense watching you to see, am I doing it right? Is it being effective?
I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I did this, but did it work?
Right. Valid point. And they handed me this list of 30 to 50 activities I could try for sensory stuff.
Well, that's a lot.
And I'm all, well, where does one start? And how long am I doing said item on this list to know if it's being effective? Right? We did the sensory brushing and the, walking on certain objects or whatever. We tried all these things. I'm like, but I don't know. So I had to start getting really clear my own intuition. Okay, friend is putting rocks in his mouth.
There we go.
We got some sensory things going on, right? I mean, I knew that anyway because the homie had a passy from day one and was not letting it go. But also he'd walk on rocks on purpose. Oh, okay, so get him some feet input or whatever, right? But their guidance was not helpful. I'm sure they meant well. And I'm sure they're doing the very best they knew how to do, but left mama feeling really alone.
In one of my episodes, I do talk about how to be a partner with your doctors. And it's so true because they can give you a lot of really great advice and they really usually are really well-meaning from the heart. They want the best for you and your child.
Sure.
But they don't live it.
Right.
And so they hand you, 30 things?
Well, this was the Arizona intervention, early intervention.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
it wasn't the doctor.
It
was they're like, here's a list of sensory stuff. I'm like, what am I doing with this friggin' list? What do you want from me?
Right. And that's so overwhelming. It actually added more stress than help.
So much more stress. I'm like, are you serious right now? Yes. So then when he started actual therapy where I'd bring it to them and say, okay, here's my kid.
Right.
And they're like, okay. And they'd figure it out, right? They'd work through the stuff. So then we started seeing some more progress. He started ABA therapy and occupational and speech and he did physical for a hot minute, did some music therapy. We did so many therapies. I mean, the kid was so over-therapized, I think, in the beginning.
Yes, ours too.
Preschool and all the things, and we're gonna cure you,
right? Oh yeah, my husband once said,
that doesn't work.
Yeah, there's no cure actually.
No, actually, that's not a thing. Surprise.
My husband actually one time said, I can't wait for the weekend because it's the only day that we don't have someone else in our house.
That's fair. Yeah.
And so it's funny how you can have people around you all the time and feel lonely.
100, especially when you feel like you're under a microscope.
Yeah,
that's how I felt.
Everyone's watching what you're doing.
Yeah, everyone's micromanaging my parenting, and if I do anything wrong, I feel like I've got 17 humans to account to for my parenting, and this is my first time, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. Well, even if it was your 5th time with a special needs kid,
everything's going to be different.
And
that's true.
Even with children that we like to call neurotypical, every child is different. Every child's going to respond to feedback in a different way, to discipline, to positive feedback, all of that. And then you put in special needs. I mean, parenting is exhausting enough on its own. And now here we add this where, like you said, there's so many people around all the time who are actually analyzing your parenting.
Yeah. So and it's not fun.
Yeah, not fun at all. It's not just like you have friends around hanging out. No, these people
they're taking notes.
Yes.
They're taking data on the things you're doing with your child. And you're like, listen, I'm doing the best I know how to do. Can you put that in your notes? Put that in your notes.
Exactly.
Please, bless. It was terrible. And later on over the years, I got used to having someone over all the time.
Right.
But it was definitely an adjustment. I mean, for those, everyone listening for the most part is going to be a special needs parent. They probably get that. But maybe the friends you hang out with don't quite understand that.
Right.
And that can feel a little isolating too sometimes when you have experiences they can't quite understand. We can dive into that a little bit more with how to overcome that. But that can feel isolating when you feel like you have an experience, they don't know what it's like. has someone in your house all the time.
Yeah.
And you have to get used to it. But
and it's not a cleaner. It's not a maid. It's not a nanny.
Right. Yeah.
It's someone who's analyzing things.
Yep.
And then you get together with your friends and you're venting, because that's kind of what friendship time is for a lot of times, right? We've got to let some stress out, and everybody does that. And then good meaning friends and families go, well, have you tried?
Yeah.
And you're like, mm-hmm. And so you feel like you're justifying or defending yourself. And they don't mean it that way, but that's how it kind of impacts you. Is it's like, oh, I have to justify and defend this.
Right. That's a really good point. Yeah.
And even if you're like, no, we haven't tried it, but there's a reason,
Right. Caveat A, B, C, and D. Yeah, right. Totally.
So, yeah. No, I hear what you're saying on that one. So we've kind of talked a little bit about that. You said you're a life coach. Can you please explain, what is a life coach? So many people have heard about it. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Yeah, totally. In fact, I met someone recently, like at a networking thing. I'm like, I'm my life, blah, blah, blah. Sorry. I'm a life coach. And they're like, what's that? I'm like, I just assume by now most people have heard of it, but I'm still surprised there's so many people that don't know, which is fine. I just live in my little bubble of coaching world. And so I think that everyone knows. I think the best way to describe a life coach is think of like a soccer coach.
Okay.
They are seeing what you're doing and saying, hey, here's some ideas. Here's some suggestions to improve your skill set.
Okay.
Yeah. We may not be diving super deep into like all the things you did before soccer practice.
Right.
We're saying here at this practice right now, I'm observing the actions that you're taking in the soccer game and saying, hey, if you want to improve making a goal, maybe try this. If you want to improve your kicking, you're going to try this, right? So when you're with the life coach, you're saying, hey, here's a specific problem. Most every coach has, and not all, but most of them have a specific area or pain point they're going to help you with. Okay. So for me, that's like overcoming loneliness is kind of the overarching theme of what I work with people on.
Because you have experience.
Lots of it. And which is funny because people are like, you get lonely? Because I'm so spastic and out there and
active,
aggressively friendly, but that doesn't mean I don't feel lonely and have not battled that, right? But so maybe it's like physical health, or there might be some other, whatever the area is. Essentially, your coach is there to be your coach, to say, hey, here's where we're at right now. So for me, I'm saying, okay, where are we at right now with our support system? Where are we at in feeling lonely? Okay, where would you like to be? And then I'm going to talk with you about all the thoughts, because life coaching is a lot about thought work. There's definitely like other modalities and different things you can do, but that's essentially the main part of it, is looking at what thoughts you have. So let's work on, how are you approaching this loneliness right now?
Yes.
And what are you doing about it right now? And I'm a safe space to say, sister, I got you, and let's figure out how to get you from here to here.
Yes.
You want to feel less lonely. You want to feel seen and supported. You can totally get there. I will help you. I'm going to hold your hand and give you guidance on how to get to that space. Please go to therapy still. Like, I love therapy.
Right. I love that. That's a great way to talk about the difference between a counselor and a life coach. The counselor is going to go back and talk about what happened 4 or 5 games ago and is going to dive into some deeper issues. The life coach is going to say, this is where we're at here. This is where we want to go. Talk about steps.
Totally. And I think I recommend always, even if you're working with a coach, with me or whoever, to still be diving into those other things. And because the therapist can also talk about now or whatever and kind of link those patterns, things like that. Like, having that safe space, I think, is still very important. I like to think of it also as like, I'm like a mentor and accountability coach. Like, I'm here to kind of just be that space to check in with you of like, how are we doing?
Right.
Doing okay? You know? In fact, I'm actually offering like Marco Polo support coaching. So they can just Marco when they're like having a moment.
Yes.
Like, hey, in fact, so far my clients love that they can just do that when they are mad. Because if we sit down for a session, they're like, oh, well, 4 days ago I was really mad, but I don't remember all the details about it. What was I mad about? Something with my kid. I don't know, right?
Life happened.
Yes. But when you're in the moment, you're like, blah, and just like raw, let it out.
Yes.
Right? And then within like 24 to 48 hours, I'm like, hey, sister, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really hard because we all want to get seen in our pain.
That's so true.
We all do.
Right.
We all want to know that it's okay that we were
experiencing whatever it was.
All the things.
The anger, the hurt, the whatever. We want to know it's okay that we experience it. Not that we should stay experiencing it.
Sure, because that's exhausting.
Right. Oh, gosh. This moment was okay. So Marco Polo, I never thought about that app. That is a great resource.
Yeah, I've actually been telling other coaches, like, start using Marco Polo. It's such an amazing resource to be able to, or you can use Voxer or other modalities, right? I just happen to love Marco Polo in my own life. I use it all the time. And it helps me feel less lonely. Yeah. Because I can be connected to people even if our schedules don't line up.
Right.
Even if our phases of life don't line up, whatever. I could still just hop on and, hey, friend, here's my date today. Right. And then whenever they have a minute, they can get back.
Right.
It's like a walkie-talkie.
Well, and I would say for life coaching, you probably can review with them, okay, this is how you felt 4 days ago, like you said.
Totally. Like, I'm taking notes anyway, but they can even go back. And what they like about my end of the Marco Polo is that I'll give them things to think about. Like, hey, I see you. Like, I'm here with you, and I see you, and that is so painful. Right. And I can understand why that's painful. Like that, just really deep validation. And then also, what do we want to do with this? And like, give them some questions, like, what do you think about this? Or, what does that word mean to you? Can you define that for me? Like, kind of those, deeper questions to kind of get them thinking, so we can pull ourselves out of that space, right? And what's great for my clients is that they can go back and listen to that. Like my first, I was a friend of mine who's so amazing. Like, let me pilot this and try it out. And I asked her feedback. She's like, my favorite part is that when I forget, what did Annie say? I'll go back.
I can go back.
She's like, oh yeah, she told me to do this, 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 and this. Got it, right?
Yes.
And it's great. She's like, oh, this was my assignment, was to do this and this. And we're not talking crazy assignments, right? We're moms.
Right.
Like, what time you got for assignments? I just mean, like, take 3 to 5 minutes to journal about this thing. Like, what was coming up for you with this, and what pattern are you seeing there, and what does this remind you of, and things like that, to kind of get to. We're going to get to a little bit deeper stuff. It's not like we're not ignoring the past.
Right.
We're just saying, hey, did that remind you something from the past? Cool. Is it happening now? Like, just kind of getting clear on those things. And so,
and that
really helpful.
Yeah, that loneliness can relate to anxiety about future situations and everything else. So being able to go back to your messages, what a great opportunity to say, I need a quick reminder before I step into a situation where I was lonely before and now I'm anxious about it and all this. Or I'm feeling lonely again. I can go back to this message. I mean, what a great opportunity for you to technically reach out to your clients more frequently than you have to reach out to your clients. They have you on demand.
Right. And
I can pull back up what she told me 3 days ago,
100%.
3 weeks ago. That is so amazing.
They do have this option to just like pop in whenever they need to, right? And then I will even check in, like, hey, just thinking about you. You've got this today. Like, I'll give you pep talks if you need. Like, what is it you need for your support?
Yes.
And get you to a space where hopefully eventually you don't need me.
Right. Well, as you said, it's training our thoughts to be different.
100.
Which helps every area of our life. If we can train ourselves to control our thoughts, which then loop right into our emotions and behaviors, we're going to train ourselves for more success, deeper and more meaningful relationships, more stable relationships, and professional, personal, all those kinds of things.
Yes, I love that.
Reframing our thoughts. I love that. And I talk to, when I work with the students that I work with, and when I even talk on the podcast about sometimes emotions, I'm like, we have to remember our emotions are coming from a different part of our brain.
Yep.
And so if we can bring ourselves out of that part of our brain and we can think about it, then we're not making an emotional decision, which then is going to lead us down the road we don't want to be down.
100%. That's a beautiful way of saying it. I also like to say that when we're back in that other part of our brain, there's no logical thinking happening. So when we acknowledge and validate and see that pain, it goes way faster. Like, we move through it a little quicker.
Yes.
And then we can come back to the problem solving. And nobody's problem solving when they're emotional.
Never.
None of us are.
Or they're reacting, which later on they realize wasn't the solution.
Right. They think they might be problem solving. Like, but no good, maybe I should say no good problem solving is happening when you are in emotional brain.
That's true. That emotional brain likes to come up with very creative solutions.
Sometimes, like keying cars and all the things. And
not always the best solution.
Not a great solution.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about was special needs moms. We can feel isolated or alone. So how do you, as a special needs mom, you said you've walked this walk. How did you first of all, find the power and the strength to overcome it? And then what did you do to get through it? So we'll start with, how did you find that power and strength to do this walk?
That's a really good way of phrasing it, the power and strength to walk this walk. And before even answering that, I guess I want to speak to anyone listening right now who's like, well, it sounds easy for you because you're really outgoing. Here's the thing. Wherever you're at, I just want you to know that I see you. This is so painful.
It is.
Like, I do not want to minimize in any way, shape, or form how painful it is to feel really alone. Yeah. Even if you have a family, even if you're in a room full of people, that lonely feeling is crippling at times, and it is so, so painful. And so I don't want to ever minimize that. And so finding the power and the strength to overcome that loneliness, I think was born from a place of, I can't do this anymore.
Okay.
Because I have always been, well, I shouldn't say always, I was pretty shy when I was younger with people outside my family. But from probably like 10 to 12 on, I've been pretty loud and bombastic. Like, I just have always been aggressively friendly and just been out there. So people don't think that I'm lonely.
Right.
And people never imagined that I was depressed. And I attempted suicide at 21. Okay. And so actually 20. I'm 41 now. And that started my journey, though, of like overcoming. I don't like how I talk to myself. This is a problem. And so, it's taken many, many years. I started my mental health journey at that point. Like, okay, enough is enough. This is clearly not working, because I thought my world had ended because my fiance had cheated on me and I was never going to be lovable. That was the belief that I was hanging on to with every fiber, was like, I am not lovable. And when I lived in that so deeply that I'm not lovable, the last thing I wanted to live in was my head anymore.
Right.
And so I was like, nope, I want out. It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to die. It was that I wanted that pain to stop. So I think we have to have compassion as well for those who've attempted or succeeded in suicide, because it's so painful. They just want the pain to stop.
Right.
And so that started things got to change a little bit.
Yep.
But my real transformation really happened after my second divorce.
Okay.
So I had my 2 kiddos are with my second husband, and it was a rough marriage. We don't speak names or details out of respect for, that's my father's, my kid's father.
Yep, I gotcha.
But really painful, isolating marriage. And I remember after that second divorce, laying face down on the floor, just like bawling my eyes out, like, here I am again. And now I've got kids. Like, I've done a lot of work and I'm very proud of myself. I have picked myself up time after time again. When I felt depressed, I felt anxious, felt alone, put on a happy face for everybody else. Right. And
especially your kids
and my children, bless their hearts. And I was like, okay, something has to give, because one, I'm the common denominator. What's going on here? Not because I'm a bad person.
No,
but there's something happening here that I'm attracting the same type of guy. Why? And it hit me so hard. It's because that's what you think you deserve.
Oh,
so if I don't deserve anything better, why am I going to look for anything better?
Right.
And I'm tolerating things that are not okay. And my husband's also tolerated things from me that they probably shouldn't have. I definitely had my part to play in my marriages not working.
Right.
Nobody's perfect. We all contribute to problems, right?
Don't we?
We all contribute. Oh. And I thought I had done so well in like being confident. But when I really realized that the true root of that is I needed to find my self-worth, that my worth does not change. And in the book Worthy, I think it's Jamie, Lena, what's her name? We'll look it up.
I'll put it on my website for you guys.
Yeah, I love it. But the book's called Worthy. Okay. And I love her definition of self-worth is your foundation. That's your rock solid foundation. It never changes.
Right.
Your worth never changes. Your confidence is the house you build on the foundation.
Oh,
so I think it's such a cool way to put it.
Yeah.
Like,
great visual.
Right? And we do have certain confidence in certain areas. Like, I'm really confident in some of my talents and abilities, but maybe in other areas I'm not as confident.
Right.
Right. So we're constantly building, and maybe it gets torn down by experiences and we build it back up. So it's a constant construction process on this house on top of our foundation. And so I had to then go back to, okay, I needed to do the work on my self-worth. I've been trying to build my confidence, but I had no foundation.
I
had to get back to, okay, if I don't like me, then how am I attracting anybody who likes me?
Right.
And not that I didn't have great friends. I definitely did. I still do. I have friends from 20 plus years that I adore, right? But if I'm looking to stop feeling lonely, I have to feel at home in my own body. And how do you do that? Well, you have to change the narrative in your head.
I love that. You've talked so much about that narrative, the way we talk to ourselves, about ourselves, our circumstances, our world, everything. And if we find ourselves caught in the loop of speaking negative about who we are, about who we are in our roles of life, but about who we are just as, like you said, that foundation, who am I? Then we're setting ourselves up for that loneliness, which in a sense is a toxicity that's going to spread to our children.
Yeah.
Because they're going to learn that pattern of behavior, even though we don't think we're teaching it.
Oh, they're doing anything we do.
Yes.
Please bless. When I hear my daughter playing with her Barbies and she sounds exactly like me, I'm like, oh, okay. But sometimes it's cute. Like she'll say, put your seatbelt on. I'd love you too much to see you get hurt. I'm like, that's exactly what I say.
Yeah, exactly.
So good. Sometimes
so they
it's
hear
good
the
things.
good and the bad.
All the things in between. Yeah, for sure.
So talking about changing the narrative in your head. And that takes practice.
Much practice.
And lots, which is what, like you said, life coaching is all about coaching you to change that narrative. You're going to say, okay, you're going to send me a Marco, right? So they send you a Marco and they say, these are the thoughts in my head right now. I'm really mad or I'm really hurt or whatever the emotions are. These are the thoughts. This is the narrative. And then you can get back to them and say, hey, I hear you. I can understand why you're feeling that way. So let's talk about how we change our narrative so we can stop feeling that way.
Right. And maybe you'll always feel that way essentially sometimes, right? Like I'm 20 years into this practice and I'm not perfect by any stretch. I even had a meltdown yesterday. We're still going to have experiences. Life is still going to happen, but our resiliency with those things does change when we learn how to talk to ourselves differently.
Right.
And I can be alone. I mean, I'm a single parent, meaning there are half the time I'm totally alone in my house.
Right.
It's just me. And that was a big adjustment from, I grew up in a big family. There's 6 kids in my family. And when I was married, obviously I was never alone, and so I had its own set of problems, right? But then it was like, oh, I have to actually face like being alone and missing my kids and wishing I could be with them and just facing all of that. And so that's one piece of it, is when you can learn to really genuinely love yourself. And I'm talking like mad hearts above the eye crush on yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You are like, I love her so much. We are not talking about cockiness. We're not talking about better than.
Right.
I don't think I'm better than anybody.
Right.
But do I like me? Heck yeah, I do.
Right. And
I'm
that doesn't
awesome.
mean, and you still know you have weaknesses and challenges
100%.
and you still know that, you're not perfect.
No, I have many
accept
things that I need support in. Like when I do my kindness camp in the summer for girls, I talk about strengths and supports. We all have strengths and then things we need support in. Even calling it a weakness sometimes can give the feeling of lesser than.
Right.
Or powerless, and not that it's meant to be that way, but it can feel more empowering to say, these are things I need support in. I am a fun person to be around, but no one's asking me to do their taxes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Nor would they ever. Yes. Would they ask for directions from me? No, they would not. Yes. But they want to talk to me because I'm fun to talk to. Right. We all have things that we're good at and things that we're not.
That we're not good at, yeah.
And I'm done beating myself up for things I'm not good at.
And that's why you want to help people create a community, because we as humans are intended to be in community with others. Yeah. So we're intended to have our strengths and have our areas that we don't have strengths. And the point of that is that we can build each other up. That we're not, we're not meant to truly be alone, though there are times we should learn to be confident in our loneliness. Yeah. And because that's not our state of being, it's just a moment. Totally. And so overcoming that, I love when you talked about you had to learn to truly be alone because it was silent in your house. Kids were gone.
Silent. Weird. Yeah.
Weird silence. Yet probably 50% of the listeners would go, can I get that?
I know. Because listen, it sounds really cute until you have it.
Until you have it.
Because listen, the first 2 weekends you'd be like, heck yeah, right? And then after 5 years, you're like, oh, well, can they just come back now?
Yeah.
I just miss them, and I just want to hang out with them. And things are actually better with my ex and I, and we actually have been doing more I've been watching them when he's at work and, helping each other out. And so
more of a team effort now.
There's more chances for me to see them on my not kid time, even Monday and Tuesday this week, not my kid week, but I had them after school at my house to just hang out till dad came. And, so we definitely have more cohesiveness there, but there's still today I'm going to go home and my house will be empty. you know? And I think we have to differentiate between being alone and then feeling lonely.
Yes.
Because I can be all by myself, and if I'm in a really good headspace, I don't feel lonely.
Right.
I'm just chilling with myself. You know what I mean? But you can, like you said before, you can be with people and feel lonely. Right? So it's this.
What's happening up here. It's that headspace.
Totally.
It's that narrative that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what were some of the narratives you had to flip to help yourself get through this?
Such a good question. Okay. So one thing I thought about, and I love these questions you have, and I was thinking about, like what are some like actionable things, right? And the first thought that came to my mind immediately was when we say that no one understands us, right? And I think that that's pretty common in the special needs world because yes, we have friends around us and family members around us that don't understand what our experience is, but the thought of no one understands me or what I'm going through is so isolating.
It is. So the thought is more isolating than the reality.
100%, because when you're thinking, oh yeah, no one understands me, you are creating isolation in your own mind and you are disconnecting yourself from other people. Here's the magic sauce. You ready?
I'm ready.
You probably already know this, but the magic sauce is our experiences will never be the same, right? We're both special needs parents.
Yes.
Our experiences are different.
They are.
Right? And I respect yours and I'm going to learn from yours and honor what you have to bring to the table because of your experienures.
Yes.
And we've probably had similar feelings.
Yes.
Our connecting piece is the feeling. We felt lonely. I don't think I've met a single human being who hasn't felt lonely. We've all felt sad. We've all felt angry, nervous, disappointed. There's only so many feelings to have.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? You can have caveats like frustrated, irritated, but there's only so many feelings you're actually going to have. So that is where we find common ground. Yes. That's where we get connected. Because we can say, hey, tell me about your experience. And they'll hear that and say, oh man, I hear that so hard. And you validate them and you're like, man, I bet you felt really fill in the blank. I bet you felt really angry when that doctor didn't listen to you.
Yes.
Man, I can totally relate to feeling angry about not being listened to.
Right.
It super sucks. And I feel that for you, right?
When you told your story, that was exactly one of the thoughts that went through my mind was like, oh my gosh, I remember that time when.
Yeah.
And I could completely just connect with the feeling of how it would be to experience that again.
Yeah.
And then it also did help me think, how did I get through it?
Right. Yeah, totally. Because I have there's a story about there's a woman that she's happily married 20-something years, you know, love her so much. We were roommates at a retreat and I had this trigger come up around, it was going to be the first time I was going to meet my ex's girlfriend. And it wasn't about her. It just was all this pain of like, he's moved on. He doesn't care about me anymore. Just all this pain came up.
Oh boy.
And I started bawling my face off and I was so embarrassed. And she's like, oh, honey, I got you. And just like rubbed my back and let me get it out. And she's like, yeah, I bet that's really painful. And she just validated my feelings. She did not have to experience what I experienced. Right. Again, happily married. She's not dealing with what I'm dealing with, right? But I felt seen by her because she was like, yeah, I bet that's really scary. And she could relate to the scary. She could relate to the fears, not, meeting my kid's stepmom.
Right.
That was not a thing. We're all happy now. All is well, right? But this was years ago. And it just was a powerful lesson for me in we do not have to have the same experiences to connect.
So finding a way to connect with other people, regardless of experiences, more on that emotional level of I can just understand your emotional pain. I can just understand your emotional center. Yeah. And I can help you walk through the emotional part of this.
Yes, totally. Because again, that thought, sorry, little microphone, I'm just smacking you and it's not even your fault. The thought itself, no one understands me, is going to create isolation.
Right.
The thought of my experiences are my experiences and I can connect with other people on emotions will feel connecting, right?
Right.
So it's just the tweak in the wording. Yeah, they don't get what it's like to have the doctor tell you you're crazy.
Right.
They don't know what it's like to have your 11-year-old have a full-blown meltdown in the middle of a bookstore and have some lady come up and say, you're too cute to be getting so mad like that. I'm like, you think he cares one iota about what you think he's cute? He don't care what you think about him.
Yeah.
He does not care you think he's cute. So no. And I just said, he has autism, but thank you so much. And then we went back to him,
Yeah.
Because I have just spent a lot of time sitting with him in it. Because I want people to do that for me. I want people to sit with me in my pain.
Right.
So even if that's super embarrassing in the middle of this bookstore,
yes,
to be like, hey, bud, and I sit down on the floor with him. I'm like, hey, buddy, I hear you want that book so bad. And you are so mad. I hear you. And I love you anyway. I love you when you're mad.
Yep.
And just sat with him. And he was screaming his face off. Do you think that I let that deter me? No. This lady deter me? Heck no.
Right.
Because I am committed to being with my kid in his moment of pain. And then eventually, we talked him through. He calmed it down. We went to the other bookstore and got the book. Like, all was well, you know? But in that moment, I was like, I don't care what anybody people think. I'm just going to be here for him.
And that is so hard because that is what leads to loneliness too, is worrying about what all the other thoughts are that are out there. I read a blog and I actually did a little quick blurb about it, and it was called "Lady, Get Control of Your Kid."
Oh boy.
Yes. And it was written as, this is a letter to the guy in the store, in the supermarket or something like that. And it talked about how it can be so isolating as a parent whose kid is having a meltdown or having an inappropriate behavior of some sort. Or maybe it's actually not even verbal at all, but the child is completely drawing within and you know you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
Sensory overload, whatever it is. Even, again, that neurotypical child can experience these kinds of situations. And when it happens, a lot of times as parents, we get distracted by worrying about other people's thoughts.
Totally.
Which takes us away from being in the moment with our child.
Yes, that's a beautiful point and so understandable, right? I totally get why we all do that. I still do it sometimes.
Yes.
It's understandable because, like you said, we're connection creatures.
Yes.
We want to be not kicked out of the herd, right? So we don't want to be too weird and whatever. And, and so it's totally understandable, but it's that practice of like, hey, because when I was sitting in that moment with him, I have trained myself, for the most part, to say, they're going to think I'm weird, and that's okay.
Yep, that's okay.
I like me, and I like my son, and I'm going to send them all love and light, and it's going to be fine. That doesn't mean I don't get frustrated sometimes.
Right.
I remember many years ago, a lady was like attacking me in Chick-fil-A, and I stormed out crying and sat in the car just like bawling my face off. And my sweet sister-in-law, we still consider us family. We don't say farmer. With the in-laws.
That is very sweet.
They are so sweet. I love them. But, so sister-in-law came out with my Chick-fil-A and just like let me get it out, Bless her heart. And her kid's not special needs. Yeah. And she could totally be there for me in that moment. I did not handle it well back in the day. So I've definitely had to grow into the space of right now, what do I care more about? Yes, I care that I'm never going to say I don't care at all.
Right.
I think that's unrealistic, right? But I care more about my goal of being here for my son. And they can be wrong about me. Right. That's another thought I've had to practice.
That's a great statement. I love that.
They can be wrong. That's cool.
And you can just let them have that.
Yeah.
We don't have to change their opinion.
No, but that comes back to like when I get very clear in my value, then I know that that's their opinion's wrong. But when I think that there's something wrong with me, that's where the real pain comes in.
That's the problem.
The barb is, and the little hook is what we believe.
If we adopt their perception of us, then we're the one that suffers.
Yes, that's perfect.
So, and what we have to do, I love that barb. That
analogy.
That was so good. If we adopt someone else's perception, we will feel the pain, not them, us.
Right, so we believe it.
Yeah, so we have to choose not to believe it.
Right, which is we're not saying that's easy.
No,
it's not easy, but
and
it's possible.
Sometimes going to still come up even when you know you don't believe it. It's almost like the devil on the shoulder.
Yep.
Who's just like, hey, remember that thought you had? And you have to, again, even though it's 3 years later or however long later, you have to again go, no.
Yep, no thank you. You're not welcome here.
Exactly.
Not today.
Not today.
Thank you.
So how do you coach parents who are rejected or feel rejected because of their children, in a sense? How do you coach them to cope with that rejection?
That's a beautiful question. I would say that it's going back to taking a deep look at, are you rejecting you?
Okay.
Because if that person rejects you, are they for you?
Oh, yes. I see what you're saying.
Are they? Because there's going to be people in our life that don't like us.
Yes. That's hard to accept.
It is so hard to accept.
Because we're like, well, how could you not love me?
Like, look at me, I'm so cute. Like, why wouldn't you love me, right? In fact, one of my favorite jokes, like when I speak on stage and stuff, I talk about like, y'all may love me, but I got 2 ex-husbands who disagree with you, right? So,
That's a great one.
You're right. And think about it this way too. Like, imagine like any celebrity. Can you tell me one that everybody likes?
No.
I'll wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You cannot. There's not a single person on earth that everybody likes. So the sooner we can come to peace and terms with
that rejection,
that it doesn't mean you're not lovable. Because that's the barb, right?
Yes.
If they reject me, there's something wrong with me.
Got it.
If I know there's nothing wrong with me, I'm just not someone's flavor of snack pack.
Yeah.
Then all right. It's going to be okay. But if I like my flavor and I'm good with my flavor, it doesn't mean it's not going to hurt when someone says, I don't want to be around you or I don't want to be friends with you. But it's a pain on a different level when you make it about you.
I love that.
Right? When you're like, there's something flawed in me. That's why they don't want to be around me. I'm the worst. Like, and we get in these like negative spirals, right? You just go down and down and down into a deep black hole. Trust me, I've been in many of those deep black holes. And I've gotten better at catching them at the top. Like, oh, yep, we're going down this road again. I know that road.
Identifying when you're at the beginning of that spiral is so important.
Or even the middle. Let's catch it
just
somewhere.
Identifying it.
Sure, catch it at the end if you got it. Like, it just at one point be like, oh, man, this is not working. Because if someone doesn't want to be around me, that's their problem.
Right.
Right. And again, maybe if it's family, that's going to be a lot harder and stickier.
It is going to be
for
harder
sure.
if it's family.
And there maybe needs to be some like conflict resolution there, maybe some communication, coaching going on, But I think at the end of the day, if you accept you and you know your value, their perception does not define your value.
Right.
I'm actually practicing a lot with dating apps right now.
Oh, interesting.
Every time things don't work out, I'm like practicing, like painting on my head, like their perception of you does not define your value.
Right.
Right. Because rejection is also part of life.
It is a part of life.
And it's so hard to watch our kids get rejected.
And they do.
They do constantly.
It almost hurts more than when we are. Because I'm just like, when my child gets rejected, I actually react way more strongly than when I'm rejected. You and that mic are having a special relationship.
We're just, it's fine. I just love you. It's fine. That is true because our kids are like our heart outside of our body.
Yes.
So we feel so vulnerable. Like when they're hurting, we're like, no, because it's painful. It really is. And that's probably a whole other conversation too. But just again, knowing like if they don't want to be around your child, that's a reflection of where they're at.
Where they're at.
And I'm not even saying it's a reflection of like they're a bad person.
Right.
I don't believe in bad people.
Right.
I think that that's just where they're at right now, that they can't be in an accepting place.
Right. They can't be in an accepting place. They can't understand how to make this work. Hopefully, they grow through that.
Yeah, like we all hope that for them.
Right? Just like we're trying to grow through that feeling of not allowing that barb to just grab a hold of us and to keep ourselves from doing the spiral all the way down. We're growing. And so we hope that other people are growing at the same time that we're growing through all of those things.
And hopefully my experience with them crossing paths with me helps them on that journey. But in the meantime, it sounds like you're not part of my path.
Right.
If you don't want to be around me, I'm not part of your path.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're rejecting them because maybe they're going to join your path later.
Sure.
If, they might circle back around, especially like you said, family. It might be something where you have to learn some skills and then come back together later.
Totally.
So they might join your path later. But right now, if that's not where they're supposed to be, you really have to focus on identifying who you are.
Yes.
I love that. Identifying who you are, finding strength in that. So if our listeners want to connect with you, what are some of the ways, and I'll put everything on the website, everybody. What are some of the ways that they can connect with you?
Perfect. So my website is anniejoy.com and then Instagram is anniejoy.speaks.
And that's with an IE, correct?
Yes. ANNIEJOY. Joy is my middle name, so that's helpful.
I love it.
It's very fun.
And I think that there was a little premonition when they put Joy in the middle name there.
It's so funny because it's a generational name. My grandma was Joy. Her middle name is Joy. My middle name is Joy. And then my daughter her middle name is Joy. And what's funny is that I wouldn't say the previous owners of the name have been so joyful, because of their own pain, right? And their pain and their lack of skills and knowledge, right? I believe that both of them did the very best what they
Yes.
could and are still doing the best they can, right? But I feel like I am a chain breaker in what joy really looks like. And now getting to see my daughter speak up for herself and love herself at the age of 10.
That's amazing.
She's not perfect. She's 10.
When none of us ever get to be perfect.
No, but people, when they meet her, will tell me like, you named her well. She's Charlotte Joy. And she's such a joyful person. And she's such a light. And it's so healing for me because I love my son in a very different, special way, right? Like when you have your special needs kiddos, it's different, right?
It's different.
And her, it's this different connection of I get to like reparent me through her, and I get to parent her the way that I wish I was treated.
Yes.
And treat her big feelings like they're, something to be acknowledged and honored, and to be able to teach the things that I didn't know until I was in my 30s and teach her now, and to see her like thrive and grow in this confidence in herself and how she treats other people and how accepting and loving she is. So it's fun because the name has been a generational thing, and she has become this embodiment of the word joy. Yes. It's amazing.
And Chain Breaker, I love that song. It is a song out there, by the way. You can look it up.
Yes,
I love that song, Chain Breaker. And so the fact that you identify yourself as one, and you've seen the efforts that you have made. You've seen the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. I'm so glad you came here to join me today. Thank you so
Me too.
much.
This is so fun.
We'll have to do this again for sure. Maybe even pick a new topic. It's special needs moms. There's only a million of them.
That's true. That's true.
So I'd love to have you back again.
That'd be so fun.
So thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you everyone for joining us and watching today. We'll hope to see you again next time.